have never seen anyone, no, I have not actually encountered any conversation, any accusation by the imam or the people in the mosque about the destruction of the state of Israel. But it's there. And one day we'll have to talk about this. American Jews are different than Israeli Jews. Muslims in America are different than Muslims in some of the extreme Arab countries. This will be part of the conversation.
So the imams never said we call for the destruction. He's never said we don't.
Well, we'll have to get into the conversation. Yeah.
Wait and see.
I mean, Jews also have to change. Just because you didn't hear any Jews in the temple speaking against Christians doesn't mean that we don't have feelings about Christianity and what Christianity did to us. Not you, but definitely we have a history, difficult history with Christians. But we are in America, and America has a lot of Christians, and so Jews are different. We are also evolving. We are changing. Yes?
Well, I know what we all need is a friend who is a Muslim. I have two friends from Iran and they're Muslim.
Yeah.
And it has made all the difference in my world. And they are not speaking in destructive terms at all.
Of course not. Yeah.
And that has helped me.
We need to break bread more often.
Yeah.
We need to open our homes.
Yeah.
It's not only opening church, the mosque and the synagogue. It's about opening our own homes.
Yes.
That's why all the events we have done, all the picnics, I mean, those are opportunities to see other people. Hopefully there is now a work in creating small groups,
Neighbor to neighbor.
neighbor to neighbor, of people meeting each other. That's what needs to happen.
So I
It's
just
not
have one.
just,
Sorry. Just a second, yeah?
it's not just, I don't think, within Christian, Muslim, Jew. I had a Catholic friend tell me within the last year that she grew up in a very Catholic family, and she went to parochial schools, she went to a Catholic high school and college, and she said she was always taught that you shouldn't associate with Christians other than Catholics because they were not the true faith. And it wasn't until she got in a college group where she was associating with a lot of non-Catholics that she said, I figured out that non-Catholics were okay. You know, so I don't think it's just.
Yeah, I agree. We have other groups that we cannot even explain what kind of Christianity they possess.
Well, this business now with the Methodist Church, I was listening to a discussion on NPR, and it's just kind of I can't even fathom having opinions like that. But
So how they solve the issue, it's so interesting. Because Jimmy Creech was across the street when he did the wedding. And then he left because he was fired. So there is a place downtown. What's the name of the place that is open? Urban Abbey. So Urban Abbey minister, she is a Methodist minister. What's her name? Deborah McKnight. Thank you. And what she does is, because I had dinner with the person that is in charge of the music in the happening in the place, and he has a evangelical ordination. So he stands next to her. She is not allowed to do gay weddings, and he, because of his ordination, does weddings to gay people. You know, I think it's bizarre to have someone else come into your church and do this because you can't do it. but that's the way for her to save her ordination.
There are a number of Methodist churches that have affiliated with Uniting Church so that they can play that
Yeah.
card.
By the way, it was, I would not work in a synagogue where I have to hire an assistant rabbi that doesn't do interfaith marriages. So the Temple Israel welcomes interfaith marriages and gay lesbian marriages, but I will not hire a person that doesn't do it. And so there are some synagogues around the country where the senior rabbi doesn't do interfaith marriages, so they hire an assistant rabbi to do it. I find it as ridiculous as the example I brought.
The Methodist Church, as the Episcopal Church has previously, has this problem because, in large part, because they are trying to hold a worldwide
View.
And American Methodists tend to have a much more liberal view than, for example, African Methodists, which are about half of the church. So then, that's.
So can you imagine ever one God? Let's continue.
Without the maligned other, who are we? Without demons to blame for the evil in the world, who will take the rap? Without good fences, how will we distinguish ourselves from our neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, those are legitimate questions. Go on.
I forget how you pronounce that.
Aleinu.
The
Aleinu, upon us.
The Aleinu asks us to liberate our self-image so that we no longer dependent on such demonized others, who will, after all, eventually not be there as the other. Aleinu thus has incredible power to transform our own lives, not just our world. This prayer that signals the end of the service demands that we make a new beginning when we leave the synagogue. Otherwise, our recitation of it is no different than the worship of the vanity and emptiness that we attribute to those who give allegiance to false gods.
Yeah. So in a way, so the worship at any place is like a stop sign. After you say the words, you need to move and cross the intersection. Something has to happen to all of us when we are done with a service, when we are done praying. I'm talking about communal prayer. We cannot be the same. What's the purpose of prayer then? So here, remember what was the original in Jewish. Thank you, God, for not making me Gentile, those people who worship other false gods. We drop it from our worship because this is not the way to walk in this world. Those are good questions to continue discussing. How do we get close to each other and still keep our differences? Do you see any difficulty of having that prayer attached to the end of the service here on Sunday morning? Is there anything in that prayer? Go back to the first page. So here is, go to page 135. So when I still function as a rabbi, like hundreds of years ago, feels like that, I omitted that, listen to the prayer again. There's no translation here. It's better translation on 133. Okay, it's starts in the beginning at we must praise the master of all and render greatness to the creator of the universe, the beginning, who did not make us like the nations of the land. How do you pray this prayer when there's a bar mitzvah and the mother of the bar mitzvah child is not Jewish? I mean, so and did not place us like the families of the earth, who did not make our lot like theirs, or our destiny like all of them. So I would definitely move to we bow down. I'll start the prayer here with we bow down. First of all, I never did it in English. So it goes like this. It starts, Aleinu leshabeach le'adon hakol, latet gdula liyotzer breshit, acknowledging God, greatness. And then I'll skip to verse 2, and we bow. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim. And guess what? I went to pray now in the temple, and it's back. Okay, but it's not my rabbinate anymore. So we don't have any chief rabbi that tells us what to do. Makes it complex.
So the first paragraph is back? Is
The
that what
first
you're
paragraph is back now.
Okay.
And I planted my seeds about this with people in the congregation, and they look at me now because they wonder how I feel. Well, I feel okay. That's his choice, their choice. What?
Well, you said, how do we welcome others in without changing ourselves?
Yeah, so I expect some people who are sitting here, who will be anonymous, to raise those questions with the rabbi without telling him who sent you on that mission.
I'd like to thank you for leaving it out of my son's bar mitzvah, but you said it in Hebrew, so I probably didn't know.
I didn't say it in Hebrew.
Thank you.
We went straight.
Okay, well, I didn't know.
Because there is an option in our prayer book of what I said. So there are 4 options for this prayer in the prayer book of Temple Israel. I went straight to the prayer. By the way, I also introduced a prayer that the mother who is not Jewish can say after the Torah. So there is a Torah blessing before and after for those who are not Jewish. It's in the prayer book. So I have been, for purpose of incorporating it. I don't ever remember not acknowledging the mother or the father who is not Jewish and thanking them for having the child at the temple. Because there was another option for you, which you decided not to take, which was to go and educate your son in a church. But you brought the son to our temple. And I think those people who do this deserve thanks. Because I know how difficult that issue is.
Could I ask, in the temple, is when people disagree with the rabbi, how open?
First of all, no one disagrees with the rabbi. What are you talking about? Oh, I forgot they're Jewish.
How open are most rabbis to listening and to possibly changing a little bit?
Well, I was interested in growing up, and this congregation helped me grow up. So I came with different theology when I came. I was very much grounded in Israeli way of life. And it took some time, and definitely my wife helped too. I, for example, learned the word process only in America. Process for me? Are you kidding? You make a decision, why you have to ask people? Committee work? The worst. You guys know that, come on. Committee work can destroy everything. That's why Temple Israel doesn't have so many groups like you guys have. You guys have millions of groups, half of them not necessary. What?
Right, they vote, and they vote.
Yeah, thank God the rabbi has some authority already from ancient time to make decision. So they don't come and ask me if what they eat is kosher or not, because they already made decision about what they're going to eat. But they ask me other questions, ethical questions about other topics. So How open? I think sometimes I was not open, and sometimes I was open. Depends what the grievance is all about. But there is a need for work on this stuff. So I don't know. Ask the people here if I was open. Okay.
No.
Ask them.
Jews argue. Jews
What?
argue.
Jews argue. Yeah, there were a lot of arguments.
It's
The
incorporated.
the tri-faith discussion was brutal.
Still is.
Still is. So I even got a thread emails at home that something will happen to me from one member who left, and then he came back when I had to bury him. They all come back at the burial. They need a rabbi at the end.
I think that's a good question because I think about people who are Jewish or Islamic or Christian. And
Muslims,
I
they mean,
say,
yeah.
so what? Okay, I just would like to learn
Yeah.
about your faith. I don't have a problem with it. And I think if we spend more time listening to the Muslims tell us about the things that they're open to or that are allowed, or certainly things that offend them.
They will tell you.
I hug the imam.
Yeah.
And I think that's not something you're supposed to do. I didn't mean to offend him.
What was the question you asked?
I just would like to learn more.
Yeah, that's not offensive.
Can you ask the rabbi, can you ask the imam?
Oh my God.
What shouldn't you do, or what is considered offensive? I think that would be very helpful to us as we get elbow to elbow.
Yeah, okay, so what's offensive to Jews?
Not having something to eat.
Just don't bring pork into the synagogue.
Yeah, you gotta eat.
Yeah, which is interesting because it is possible for all of them to eat outside non-kosher food, but don't bring pork to the temple. Okay, I mean, we are so funny. I mean, you have to learn that you need to laugh with us. That's why so many Jewish comedians are available. What's offensive? Anything offensive? Anything that they should not ask Jews?
My husband has a problem with, in a public
Forum.
forum, when there's a prayer before the meal, and they say in Jesus' name.
You know what? I was taken back when ministers that I participate in any kind of justice work with them will say this, and then some of them understood this and start changing. I don't care anymore because this is the way they need to pray. So I am a lot more comfortable now in my life when I hear Jesus Christ. He was one of our boys.
I think that the conversation needs to be what does in Jesus' name mean, because
But that's a conversation that you guys have to have.
I think it's because some Jewish people may think that because there are Christian religions that use Jesus and God interchangeably, that we have to pray to God as Jesus' name.
But I remember this is a challenge for some people here. We talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have to see what's comfortable for you. You never hear a Jewish rabbi ending out the prayer with "in the name of Jesus." So I mean, what is offensive to us? Well, I mean, some of us have a very thin skin. It depends who the person is. It depends on what level of comfort we have. You can say anything to me. Really, I mean, especially now that I'm retired. That's what's so good about retirement.
The
You
young
can
lady-
take different arrows and just feel comfortable. What?
The young lady that, I'm sorry, I can't think of her name, that was one of the first two Muslims in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Has gotten a lot of criticism for statements because she's talking about she's really talking about the Palestinians.
Of course she's talking about. I expected her. She's elected. They elected her. She's going to talk about what's important for her. But immediately, the Jews are coming out and calling her anti-Semite.
Well, I've been when I read it, it sounds to me that a lot of that is coming not from Jews, but from Christians who are concerned about being careful about that area. And I'm wondering, does it sound anti-Semitic to you?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because I have a view about what Israel needs to do with the Palestinians that is very comfortable. I don't think she would like to kill all the Jews in Israel and have, I don't think so. It's also uncomfortable because you have also a Jewish representative in the House and in the Senate, and then they are also offended. But it's their problem, really. I think this woman should express her opinions.
To my ear, it sounds more political than
It is
religious.
political.
So
It's not religious, it's political.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That's why the Tri-Faith has been very careful about not discussing those political issues and concentrate more on the religious aspect. The Tri-Faith should be at the base a religious movement, not political movement. But there will be no way of running away from talking about this. Sooner or later, that topic is going to come up. I mean, what will happen next time when Israel is attacked in the next war by some Arab country, by Syria, for example? That's why Israelis are so concerned about the influence of Iran in Syria. Because Syria can be a major issue. So what will happen in the next war? By the way, it's something that we talked at Temple. So every war that happened here, and we had few wars, Israel has been attacked few times by other countries. So every time there was a sign from the Federation, we stand with Israel. Well, you know, what will happen? Are we going, Temple Israel, going to put a sign, we stand with Israel, if Israel is treating Palestinians in a very bad way? It'll be interesting discussion. I can't wait for this to happen. I think we need to get it out of our system. We know it's going to happen. And the sooner it happens, the better for all of us. Okay. So my question is, what else is offensive? If you look at a translation on page 133, would you accept this as the end of the service on Sunday morning at the church? I'm talking about, for example, read the translation from verse number 5, where it starts, Adonai our God, we therefore hope soon to see your majestic glory, to remove idols from the earth. Is this something you can buy into? Yeah. Read it all the way to the end. It'll be interesting to see some of the influence that will happen as a result of us being together, of we adopting pieces of liturgy from the Christian prayer book, although you don't have a prayer book. You have a book about hymns and songs. Is there a prayer book? No, there's no prayer book.
There are suggestive readings.
Suggestive readings. By the way, the same is in Islam. They don't have a prayer book. They have the chanting from the Quran, but there's no prayer book. We are the only one, the only partner in the Tri-Faith that has actually a prayer book. Here that's why I'm giving you some examples of what's in our prayer book. This is the final prayer before you leave.
The prayers that are said in service at Temple, are they only from the prayer book?
Yeah.
Can they only be from the, so?
The only from the prayer book, except the time we'll give you for a meditation. We're giving you exactly 30 seconds to meditate on something that you want to pray for. After 30 seconds, back to the book. So I'm not laughing. I mean, but we have the fixed prayers and the prayers that come from the heart. So from time to time, the rabbi will offer some kind of a prayer and stay there and maybe have a conversation out of it, and it's not in the prayer book. But most of our prayers are fixed prayers. We are not, I learned to do those from the heart as a result of sitting with Eric and Chris and other clergy, where they close their eyes and wow, voila, they come up with a prayer. How do you do this? No, I felt more and more comfortable as a result of being in the midst of Christian clergy in Omaha, Nebraska. I started imitating. It's not so bad. I, of course, will not finish in the name of Christ. I mean, you know.
Other Christian denominations have a greater degree of liturgical formality.
Of fixed prayer.
Of the
Yeah.
Book of Common Prayer.
Of course, Catholics.
And the Missal in the Catholic Church. So
Yeah.
It's,
It's a wonderful conversation. Is it good or not good?
and we're kind of on the far end of not doing that as far as the spectrum goes.
So how do you feel about it? All right, Chris, make sure you have a conversation here if they feel comfortable or not. I don't want to push. But we have a prayer book. And when the high holiday come, we get rid of the prayer book that we use for Friday and Saturday, and then have 300 pages of liturgy of the Day of Atonement. We bring in fixed prayer about atonement and forgiveness, and we make a lot of money out of selling, not we, but the movement, the Reform movement that issues those prayer books. And by the way, those prayer books come every 20 years. Every 20 years, there's a new prayer book. So then you have to spend some time as a rabbi teaching your congregation to get used to this prayer. And so I remember when I came to Temple Israel, they changed to a new prayer book, but there were people that loved the old one. Those were people over 60, 70, and 80 that I had to have chapel services with them because they couldn't get along with the prayer book.
Is the prayer book in English?
Yes, and Hebrew.
Can we have a copy?
If you have a copy, I don't think you have a copy.
He's asking, can he have one?
Of course.
I'm wondering if we go to worship in the synagogue, how should we participate?
So first of all,
Yarmulke or-
if you want to put a yarmulke, it's available at the entrance.
Right.
By the way, when I came, they were not available. It was classical Reform Judaism when I came. And so I asked the
By the way, I
Yeah.
remember you saying, folks, if you expect me to wear a yarmulke, I'm not the boy.
yeah. So it took some years, and I feel more comfortable when I teach and when I pray to go with this. And then I have different colors, not for different events. It doesn't matter. Color doesn't matter. But they're there. I remember the first time the executive director, Dorothy Spiesman, I asked her, where are the yarmulkes? She said, they are locked in the closet in the office. I said, get it out! And then we didn't have a prayer shawl available. And then some people came and said, where's the prayer shawl? So we bought some prayer shawls, and they're there for people that want to come. So who am I to critique the new rabbi? Let's see his work and her work, because we have a woman and a man. So, yeah.
I think having a prayer book like you have and doing those same prayers is a lot harder for your congregation than what we do. We have to pay attention to our prayers. Your congregation can just go through the motions and be thinking about what they're going to cook for dinner.
And you don't do it? When Eric speaks, you don't think about dinners?
Well, it's always different.
Always
It's
different.
always, the
Yeah,
prayers are.
yeah. So we introduce more and more, and I don't know if they're doing it now, but I introduce places to stop during the service. For example, there is a prayer for peace that comes. So we have, so the prayers are organized in such a way that the topic, you can not read the prayer, but you can offer a prayer on the same topic of peace. For example, when Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister of Israel, was killed, murdered by a Jew, because he wanted to bring peace, and that Jew didn't want to do it, and he was from a fraction, very extreme fraction of Jews. We have them, and they are part of who I am. So then, that prayer of peace, I didn't read that night, that prayer. Instead of, I offer a thought that came as a result of the murder. So you can, but you have to be disciplined to offer moments of spontaneous prayer, but on the same theme, the same topic that the prayer is. So I need the next rabbi, they need to teach you the order of prayers. So the prayers are arranged in such a way that you have thanksgiving, you acknowledge the strength of God, you acknowledge the holiness of God. So there are 7 prayers on Friday night and 18 during the week. The reason why we have only 7 on Friday, because you're not supposed to ask God for too much on Friday. And definitely we omit the prayers that are asking for livelihood and to be able to. So we have an order in the prayers, and the order makes sense. You always acknowledge the matriarchs and the patriarchs. That's one of the prayer. And then the holiness of the day. So it's an order that makes sense. And maybe one day, maybe next time when I teach, maybe this can be the topic of introducing the prayer books for those of you who would like one day to stop by Friday night, always at 6, Saturday morning, always at 10:30. What will be the exposure of this church to the Jewish temple now that you're going to be there on April 7th? What will be the relationship? If we don't walk into each other worship, what will be the relationship? If we only meet outside of the buildings and never inside, what in the hell we did? Those are questions, Chris, that we need to talk about.
We raise that issue all the time. I always say that that's your biggest fear, is that we'll get.
What? Say it again.
I do raise that issue almost every time I meet with anybody on the tri-faith, is that your biggest fear is that we get there and then we don't go.
We don't see each other. Yeah. We go into our shelters, beautiful, expensive buildings, and we never again come out. Wow. Why did we do that? Yeah.
Because March Madness is coming up. Last year, when that basketball frenzy was on our TV screens for weeks, there was a team from Loyola University, Chicago, that got real close to the top, and on their jerseys was, and they were from Loyola,
Yeah.
Jesuit theology. And on their jerseys, these players had a quote. Do any of you remember it?
No.
It said, "Create new culture." And then there was Sister Jean.
Oh, she was there.
She was part of that.
Yeah, she was. She gave them the prayer. Yeah.
She got in on it, and she told me recently that she's still trying to answer her 3,942 emails asking her what that means. And she was telling them, seek understanding of things beyond your
Who you are.
Christian- yeah,
Beautiful.
who you are.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so maybe they'll be back.
Maybe we should all have uniforms. That'll be nice.
It's my Catholic friends that are actually really hard on this.
Very hard on what?
They said they went by the grounds and it looks like a big event center and not a
a religious center, and they asked me if we were gonna put a little scrawny cross on top of our church.
Well, yeah, the Catholic leadership.
What are you putting on the top of the church?
There's a cross.
Yeah, well, it's already there.
And a bell.
Yeah.
They're the most critical, is the.
Of course, they are the one. By the way,
We
the,
don't have a cross on our church now.
now, yeah.
So that we have one at all is, there you go.
Well, it's just, like I said, they're the most critical.
They're most critical because we offer them, the first offer was done to them and they refused to take it. So before Countryside and before the Episcopalians, we went to the Catholics. And they said no. So it's their loss. Although the person who is the head of the board, the sister, Marianne, is from the school, St. Mary. I think they're jealous.
Could I just ask Chris quickly? Chris, I was just reading in the monthly bulletin that on Friday night, first Friday of every month, there is a dinner, a community dinner at the AMI. And it said, be careful, don't bring this or that. You know, that is open to everybody, isn't it? So that
Is
would-
it? But I think it still requires you to call and ask what dish you can bring. I mean,
Yeah, I think there's probably a registration of some kind, so that they know you're coming.
well, we are working on this. We have to make sure that some programs are for the church or the synagogue, and then the tri-faith stuff. We are not there yet. We are. This is a question that.
Yeah, we're raising the issues about how, that's one of the hardest things, I think, in this whole conversation is, the ministries that we do here at Countryside are Countryside's ministries, and they're open ministries, and we can invite whoever we want to be a part of them. But we're the ones that run that. We're the ones that initiate that. We're the ones that use it to build relationship within our community. So it's our ministry. It's what we're called to be about. So that's kind of part of our identity. So when we open that up and invite people from the mosque or people from the temple to come be a part of that, that's a wonderful open invitation of hospitality. But it doesn't lessen the identity of who we are here at Countryside.
And it is.
Instead, what's happened is that the Tri-Faith has then said, okay, this is now a Tri-Faith event, so it's a Tri-Faith thing. And it's like, no, it's still a Countryside thing.
Yeah.
But we're inviting, and so that relationship is what is the hardest to do.
Yeah.
The dinners Friday night is an AMI ministry. It's their thing, but they've opened it us for us to come experience how they live their life. We don't have any say of what they do.
And
or
are
what
we
they do.
sure it's open for everyone?
I don't know for sure. I'll have to.
So
check.
we need to be careful in putting announcements if we don't check this.
Right, and that, I think they sent it to us to put it in the announcement, that's why I think it's there, but I don't know that for sure, I'll have to check it out. But that's the thing, is that the difference is if it becomes a tri-faith event, then everybody should have a say on what happens there. If it's a Countryside thing,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't get to have a say on what happens, I get to have a say on what happens.
Yeah,
And then they have to just live with it.
and also,
So that's
there will be
that's
some
the-
events that, what am I going to be there for?
Right.
I mean, there are some adult education, for example, that can be open, and then adult education to increase the knowledge about a topic that is an issue for a temple, for example.
Yeah.
I mean,
How do we
for
get
a
along
while,
with our other Christian brothers and sisters on an ecumenical front? That's something that we need to do internally. That's not something that Jews would care about being a part of. So there are certain things that are unique to us, and then there are things that we can share hospitably together, and then there are things that we intentionally make as a tri-faith thing where we all come together on.
Totally.
And those delineations have yet to be decided. And that's, I think, where the biggest, for me anyway, that's where the biggest challenge has been in this past year, is helping to delineate what that is. But you literally have to live together to sort that stuff out. So, I mean, there are lots of things that I would love to have be tri-faith ministries in the end, but I want it to move slowly, and I want it to build relationships before it gets there. I don't want to feel like I'm steamrolled.
Well,
And so
if the way
that's
this is
kind of-
worded, it's as if they're inviting the community, which.
So,
and
Chris, I'm
so-
suggesting to you to check this and
Yeah.
then make the announcement if it's open for everyone.
In fact, I can do it right now. I'll call Sarah.
Good.
Yeah. She'll do it now, so by the end of the class, you'll know what to do. You'll have to do your own meal that time. Or maybe not. Okay, yes.
Since we're on the tri-faith thing, can I just raise a little thought that has come to me recently? I love how you said, when we are all on the campus together, if we're not going into each other's houses, what are we there for? And I love that. I am a little concerned, I'm not catching the vision of the Tri-Faith Initiative's fourth building. I'm a little worried then.
We all worry about that building.
I'm a little
So
worried
we are
is that gonna
talking
get in the
about it.
way, or is that gonna actually help us come together? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, it'll be still a defeat if that's the only place where we're going to be together. Actually, I was vehemently against the fourth building. I wanted picnic tables, that's all. Why do we need fourth building? I lost. So, you know, because really, I mean, the purpose will be missed if we don't walk into each other. That's how we need to teach each other how do you walk into a different place. I totally agree with you. Classes of how to walk in.
I just wanted to comment on that, how do you walk into a different place? And I've been to all different synagogues in the area, from Orthodox.
Speak a little bit louder.
I said I've been in a lot of synagogues in Omaha my whole life, and in the Reform and even the Conservative, it's a very comfortable experience. I mean, there's not any complicated to know about how do I behave during the service. You just walk in, you're welcome, you go with the flow. It's always been a really comfortable experience. I just, in the beginning, I had to remind myself of which way to open the book.
Yeah, it's a Hebrew opening. So from right to left. That takes a minute to get used to.
I mean, a lot of it is recited in Hebrew, but there's always the English translation that I just follow along. So it's pretty easy to follow the service. And then afterwards, you know, there's a little social time with usually wonderful desserts.
Yeah, we like to eat.
I've never ever felt uncomfortable or out of place or unsure of how I should act.
But let me add something. But one day, if you have time, find out how the Orthodox service goes. You'll see a whole different, I mean, and they will also welcome you. No one is going to call you any names. Even the Orthodox, but there's a different prayer book. You'll find there more Hebrew than less English. So, yeah.
Ritual things to kind of have to be aware of.
And we also stand up and sit down. We mention, I mean, you'll hear instruction, please rise. It's the Jewish exercise, the only time Jews exercise. Please rise, please sit down. Yeah, we do this. But we don't kneel, for example, so that's very easy on your back. But yeah, we should definitely have a class to teach each other how to walk into the mosque, making sure that you know, you take your shoes. I mean, even walking to the mosque, you have to have directions. Taking shoes off, making sure that you change socks with holes before you go. The issue of women, the cover of women, the women are not sitting at the same place where you're sitting. There is a partition that divides the women. So those are things that hopefully, by being together next to each other, we can start experimenting. Yeah. I think this will be the easier part. But to see how much, I don't want $65 million to be wasted of not seeing each other. That's a huge what am I looking? Investment in not having a relationship. So we need to, it'll be wonderful to work it out. I think it'll be great. Okay, let's go to the top of page 135. We finish with and again it starts with the same verse. There is none else. Who would like to pick up that stuff? This is the mystic spiritual commentary for this prayer. You see it? It's Kushner, Poland, on the top of the page. Please, anyone? Loud?
I can't read all the words.
Oh yeah, some of them are dark, I'm sorry.
There is none else. The first of the two paragraphs of Aleinu prays for a time when the Jewish people will lead all humanity to acknowledge God's sovereignty and exclusive reality.
So, Judaism, what is our job? We were chosen to teach this. Let's repeat this again. Teach what?
The first.
What are we teaching? The acknowledgement of God,
God's
sovereignty and exclusive reality. Go on.
Each of the two concluding sentences ends with the thought that Adonai is our God and there is none else.
Okay, Adonai, now you know the word Adonai. What's Adonai? God. The way we address God. Go on.
Indeed, a second sentence, know this, oh gosh, what's that saying?
Know this, no, just that. Know this, there is none else.
It is a direct quotation from Deuteronomy 4:39. In this case, I really can't read the word.
Okay, it will be better when we...
In each case, I see it.
Yeah.
The plain meaning of the Hebrew is clear. Our God.
Now go to 142. It will be better there, I think. We'll be more careful in making copies.
Yes, that's right. Is only God. The Hasidic tradition is taught by such masters as Dov Ber of
Mezrich. And
17.
those are Hasidic masters. You already know a little bit of Hasidic because the class before was some of the Hasidic stuff. So you're giving names of Ham Hasidic. Now continue.
Shneur Zalman.
Go to the next paragraph in
Oh,
Hebrew.
Okay.
The Hebrew.
The Hebrew is ambiguous. Ein od literally means not just there is none else, but there is nothing else. This dramatically expands the theological assertion. Not only is God the only God, but God is all there is. Only God is real. Besides God, this is literally nothing else. In the Yiddish, als ist Gott. The technical term for such radical monistic theology is a cosmosm. I think I'm going home now.
No, you're fine.
The denial of the reality of the cosmos. God is the substratum of the font of all being. If something is real, it can only be because it is a manifestation of underlying and ultimate divine reality. According to such a reading, the meaning of the
Aleinu, yeah.
Shifts from a yearning merely that everyone acknowledge God's kingship. How it becomes a yearning that all people see through the apparent brokenness, confusion and contradiction and discord to the ultimate divine unity that is the true source of reality.
This is a prayer that helps us to see the reality and to see the brokenness. That there is a need to acknowledge God, knowing that maybe it's in the nothingness. This is part of a mysticism, part of understanding the different emanations of God. This is a little bit of Kabbalah. Hasidism was involved in Kabbalah. They perfected it. And so what is this saying? Remember, yeah, sorry.
Well, the divine reality is the one, and then the dualism is what we live in the realm of duality.
What duality?
What
But that's a world that we need to reject. There's no dualism. There is only one God. And both good and evil come from God. That's the anti-dualism, which is Zoroaster.
That's the concept I'm having so much trouble with.
In what?
Remember I brought it up last.
I know.
because
The difficulty is in what? In accepting the one and not knowing anything about the one? I mean, that's what he's saying.
Because for so long I've seen that we live in the in this dualistic reality of we see good and we see evil and
So
everything in between. But I guess my viewpoint is that there's a divine that people are responsible for which way it's going to go. Because I mean it's a hard concept for me
to accept.
I understand what you're saying. I just have not thought that.
We can call evil lesser good. It will make it easy.
Yeah.
Lesser good.
It's all good on a spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, a way of looking at the world. Evil is, that's a corner of the world that is not as good as the other parts. But to see one God, but still see the brokenness and the ability that we have in that brokenness to affect and fix and heal. The prayer is about healing in a way. It's about leaving the synagogue after you say the prayer, and what else I can do now? What else I'm supposed to do?
Right, so our intention,
Of course.
our mental and heartfelt intention is very
Purposefully
important.
placed in this world.
Right.
So, one of the ideas of the Kabbalah is, I mentioned it last time, that there is a world above. What was the reason that the Israelites finally were let go of Egypt? Chapter 3 in Exodus has this amazing line. It happened after chapter 3. And chapter 3 says, the Israelites cried out to God. For 420 years they were slaves in Egypt because they got used to this situation. Chapter 3 in Exodus, it starts with a verse that they cried out to God. And out of that verse, there is a belief in mystical Judaism, which is only part of what Judaism is, that if you don't yell and cry out here, nothing is going to happen there. That we're living in parallel worlds where up there in heaven someplace or whatever, there is a reality that we can affect, but we need to be involved in what we're doing in this world. The notion that there is brokenness in the world, how many people are going to do something about it? We are so overwhelmed all the time with all the difficulties in the world. Guess what? This line of Judaism suggests that you roll your sleeves and you get involved in the dirt, in the muck. Nothing will happen if you are not seeing some of the difficulty, but you have to be engaged in fixing and mending it. That's what the word tikkun olam. Remember, we spoke about this last time. Tikkun olam, the fixing, the mending of the world. So if I know that one day the world will be perfected, that's the prayer. You leave the synagogue with a prayer asking for perfection, but knowing pretty well that it's not going to happen without you. Because you are a partner with God in this unfolding story of creation. So we Jews believe that creation is taking place every moment. That it's not just millions of years ago and that's the end of creation. So then what is my role in that story of creation? You can still believe in a perfection of God, but you at the same time have the notion that it's not perfect, it's broken. Something was left for us to do in this world. And am I doing it? Am I doing it? The ark is bent on justice. What is the meaning? For me. What is the connection I have with the march on the bridge in Alabama yesterday? It's so far away. Why do I have to care about anything? Yeah, it's part of the work for justice. That's what this prayer is all about. And the only prayer after this is the Kaddish, which I told you. The Kaddish is a prayer about life, about making sure that in the midst of death, we say it in front of the open grave. We Jews are not lamenting death. We are saying a prayer about life in the midst of death. So the last prayer that we leave the synagogue after this one is Kaddish. It Gadal, Vit Kadash. Most of the prayer is Aramaic. It's an ancient, old, 5,000 years prayer that we still recite. And it's acknowledging life in the midst of sadness and death. So the Kaddish, which is called the mourner's prayer, is not about mourning. It's not about death, not about the end of life. It's about life that we need to acknowledge. Life. Sorry, it's already 11:30. Too bad. Any questions?
Amen.
Any questions? So we brought some issues that are part of the discussion of Tri-Faith. It's going to happen every time I teach, because we need to connect the words of the text to what we're doing with our lives. Some of those discussions have not taken place at the temple. So you guys, we are all okay. We'll talk a lot. We'll study a lot. That's how we need to do. In each other building.
I'd like to mention.
Not in the fourth building. Yes.
Mention something that has nothing to do with today's. But we have a gentleman coming from the Holy Coast this next week or so. And there's a lady that I'd known for a number of years when I was on staff out at South High School in Pavilion.
She just died.
Yes.
She just died yesterday. B. Carp.
Right.
B. Carp, wonderful woman.
Yes.
She took upon herself to be the witness for the Holocaust. She and her sister went through Mengele experiments in Auschwitz. And she came out and she took a vow to always talk about it. So she has done so many lectures and so many meetings in school, and she just died 2 days ago. So when that voice dies, what is our responsibility to continue?
And that's something she always worried about.
Of course.
When she was gone, who
will take the mantle?
That's right.
But this church has always invited people to talk about
It's
this.
happening March 26th.
Yeah, I know.
Peter Metzler will be here, and he is, Center for Faith Studies is hosting the Institute for Holocaust Education.
We should.
Survivor Speaker Series.
So what is the date? What is the date again?
It's the 26th of March. It's a Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
She always sat in the first pew on the right-hand side, right on the aisle.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, why did you decide every year to have that topic as part of the adult learning?
Well, Center for Faith Studies was based on interfaith conversation.
Yeah.
And they needed a place to hold the lecture series, and we already had a place.
Also, they came to you and said.
They came to us and said, "Can we host our stuff with your?"
So you guys, well, it's on a yearly basis. Beautiful, beautiful. So in addition to having the Holocaust commemoration in the community, the Jewish community, we always have, once a year, we have a special service. And as someone comes and speak about it, you guys decided to take it upon yourself. So then, why? You see, this is what we have to do. We have to understand each other adult learning and have everyone there for that night. So make sure that there is something in the temple bulletin inviting people to come, or in the Jewish press. We Jews have a newspaper, comes once a week. It's pretty boring, most of it, but it's good. It's good. It connects people. But make sure that there is an ad there for that.
It might already be too late, but I'll call and make sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I'll see you next week. Maybe there'll be no snow. It'll be warm. It'll be Hawaii.
Unfortunately, it's not gonna be.
What?
No snow.
Say it again.
I've already seen next week's predictions.
Oh, you saw the weather? Why would you look and depress yourself a week in advance?
I don't know, but it was on the news.
The news.
That's all anybody ever talks about, the weather.
I know.
I love this man. He's married already, but I love his wife.
You have a lot of work to do.
I took it when they said community, I thought maybe they were
Oh my God, she was amazing.
They shared it with our communication people, so that's how our
What was the business? What was your business? Auto parts. You're right.
Car dealers.
Oh my God, yeah, that's what he did.
Errol and I.
Now,
He was a wonderful person. Thank you for offering that.
Oh,
I'm so happy. It's very sad. The funeral is on Tuesday at 11:30 in Bethel. The other synagogue.
But it's kind of like us doing that.
I know some of the teachers know it's going to be very.
I mean, you know, we'll probably end the year with this, I
Yeah,
would think.
there are other people that are still alive in our community that can replace them for their teaching.
Yeah.
So
We
I would
lost
say
at least
we just
2
want to
weeks.
know about there.
Yeah.
That would be so. But
well, I've got the book. I can.
yes,
I don't know.
It's just hard to get into.
It's
I
very
started
hard.
reading it and I put it down. I just,
Yeah.
it's kind of beyond me. Just thinking.
Okay.
We are all, that's how we all.
Adventures in the cold weather.
used to it.
I'll never get used to it. I don't want to get used to it.
I like your sweater.
Thank you.
Really pretty.
I will pass this to my wife.
Oh, did she pick it out?
Of course. I don't ever remember walking into a shop in Omaha.
Well, she has good taste.
Good taste, you're right.
You're a lucky man.
Yeah.
I know that. Okay, so just to remind us all about the paragraph, the text on the front page, page 133. This is again the prayer at the end of the service. Every service in the synagogue ends up in all denominations in Judaism. Remember, there are at least 3 denominations or 3 movements in Judaism, religious movements: Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. And all of the prayer books have this prayer. And we already discovered that originally, we read it at Dorf. The text originally had also what? Thank you, God, for not making us Gentiles. Yeah. This was the original text, which of course, through the generation, through the years, it was very uncomfortable for Jews living in America to have this. I mean, some of our best friends are Gentiles. That's something that Trump will say. Some of my best friends, my son-in-law is Jewish, okay, and my daughter is Jewish now. It was interesting, the whole conversion piece. You know, when you're a rabbi, you pay attention to those stories. Because the conversion was an Orthodox conversion, so because that's the proper conversion in the eyes of Orthodox Jews, but inauguration day took place on Saturday, and she got to the inauguration with a car. Excuse me? What? You have been driven, or you drove a car on the Sabbath? Your conversion is off. So some of the Orthodox rabbis in America, of course, couldn't wait to criticize the rabbi who did a conversion for her. What kind of a rabbi is he? So she is, who cares? I mean, but when you have media that is looking for everything and to try to denigrate every person, there was a big article at that time. So I want to go to, she is, Frankel. We start reading Frankel on page 134. Try 134. And I want to continue with her. We read that paragraph, so I want to go to page. We find her again on, just a second.
141?
One what?
141?
Yes, 141. Thank you very much. As we move, who would like to start in the second paragraph? 141, as we move. You see it?
Yes.
Okay. Please, loud.
As we move through this prayer, however, we come to understand that even this essential differentness, so basic to our identity as Jews, so ancient and so familiar, is illusory. There is, after all, only one God. There is none else. What a subversive theological stance. For in essence, this prayer looks forward to the day when all difference will be harmonized, when all religions will be gathered under one universal tent, when all of humanity will embrace the same God.
Wow, is this maybe the dream of the tri-faith, Chris? Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, so this is at the end of days, all the nations will march to the mountain of God, and that's the notion at the end of the prayer. Go on.
Not solely the God of Israel, but the God who rules over all of us. Only on that day will God truly be one.
Yeah. So that's how we leave the synagogue with this wish that at the end of days there'll be one God and it will be the God of everyone. Are we getting closer? Are we getting closer? I mean, is this, originally I have to tell you, the tri-faith in my dream was everyone in one building, which lasted exactly half an hour. Rabbi, you're crazy. Yeah, totally crazy. We'll see what the function of that extra fourth building will be in the new tri-faith. It will be interesting to see what will be there. We talk about this. We really don't know yet what will be the purpose of the fourth building. Continue.
For anyone who experiences exclusiveness as exclusion, Jews, for instance, who have known powerlessness and have been without sustenance, voice, and even hope, this messianic future is truly redemptive. But for others, those for whom difference promises special distinction, it will come at a price. Ultimate universalism brings a great leveling, the subordination of human will to divine justice, the substitution of repentance for retribution. Such a messianic era dissolves the culture of privilege.
Wow. Okay, talk to me.
I can't see that happening.
Isn't this what God wants? Maybe not.
The privileged are not going to give up their privileges.
Yeah, it will be hard to get rid of it. Yes?
I think it's time for us to believe in miracles because, and I don't mean miracles of changing bread into manna.
Oh, what's wrong in that miracle?
Well, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
we need to move forward, just like this morning I heard a senator, a US senator from Alabama, talking about his new book called Bending the Arc Toward Justice.
Yeah.
And he grew up in that era when it was okay if you bombed a church with little children. But here it is, 40 years later. He said a transformation in our culture is moving.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think definitely there is a movement there, and sometimes we are shocked because we would like to witness this, and then something happens in some place in America where it takes us back to difficult times. It will be, for example, the rise in anti-Semitism in America now. I mean, the ADL is, there are places that monitor those things. And definitely there is more cases of anti-Semitic events happening. Some of them we don't hear about them. You remember there was a swastikas burned at, what's the name of the place? The park? Memorial Park. You know, I actually was against seating it again immediately. They immediately took seats, and I wanted to leave it for a while. I think sometimes we need to live with those hard events that take place so we can relate and talk about this. Do you have to see the place immediately so it will be green again? What's wrong in leaving it for a while? And then maybe making a fence around it and bringing school kids there to visit? We need places, I think, from time to time for pilgrimage, to bring people to places like the March on the Bridge yesterday in Alabama to commemorate the famous march that took place a long time ago. Maybe we should leave those. Sometimes I think with Jews, we sometimes assimilate so well, and then something happens and a window is broken at a synagogue, or maybe a swastika outside of the door. Wow. So from time to time, I think if those kind of things happen to some of us, we should leave it for a while. We should not go immediately to clean the wall. That's me. Yes.
I would just add, tying in with the idea of the ark, just the single idea of a reverence for life, just the idea of life, and initially bring it to humans, but then we expand it to as many living things as we can. If we just started with a simple, neutral notion, that might be something that unifies. I can't imagine too many people not revering life.
Yeah. Yeah, and the notion of being created in God's image. I mean, this is such a gift. I mentioned it before. I think this is the most essential verse in the Bible. Yeah. I mean, look at the rituals about a new baby. You're living to do what with your grandchild?
Pick him up from preschool.
Yeah, and look at the smile on her face. I didn't see any note from anyone, so I don't know if that's.
I said I'd get one.
You get one. Okay. Let's continue. You're doing a great job in reading. Please.
But Jews too should find such a vision challenging because of what it means to the culture of suffering. Jewish culture has long made of our misfortunes a badge of honor.
Yeah, oh my God. We Jews love to talk about our suffering. Yeah, Jews meet someplace and a few minutes later there will be a conversation about the Holocaust. None of them went through the Holocaust, but it's something that happened 70 plus years ago. It doesn't matter. Of course, it starts with the medication that we all take. God forbid we should. And the waiter that comes to our table usually asks, "Is anything okay?" There is a culture of complaining, and we don't know how to be happy. So this was something, I want to make sure that you understand the difference between Israeli Jews and American Jews. In Israel, as a result of living in a very, very tiny country, we, by the way, sing the same song you guys sing. This land is our land, but we have a different version. Our version is, this land is our land, this land is my land, from the Arab border to the Arab border, from the Arab border to the Arab border. This land is made for me and you. But despite the constant challenging that takes place in Israel, I have this Israeli upbringing. I came here when I was 23, and there was joy, there was happiness. It was a lot less talking about suffering, a lot more talking about finding a way to be happy, to live free, to finally be in my own land after so many generations of suffering and after so many generations of pogroms. And we know our history so well. And so even young Jews, I mean, when I take people to Washington, where would a Jew go when he is in Washington or she is in Washington? To the Holocaust Museum. By the way, I mean, we are not the only one. I know some of you have been there. But what about the happiness? Well, what about the celebration of holidays, of rituals, of the Sabbath? So there is a tendency, and she definitely puts the finger on, there's tendency to extol the suffering. That's what I love, the relationship with you guys.
We make you suffer?
No. Only you. No, because you guys are teaching us how to be happy, how to talk about other topics instead of only about the suffering. It's a challenge for us. For all the Jews, it's definitely a challenge to be able to talk about other topics when it comes to, you'll see in the presentation, I'm sure there'll be so many meetings, and this will be a topic to talk about. And of course, here's where some of the tension with Muslims is going to take place, because the Palestinians. So we Jews have not learned yet how to be in power. We have memories of being powerless, and then when we have the power, we don't pay attention to the evil that power can bring. For sure, the Palestinian peace will be a topic that we need finally to discuss openly. And it will be hard for American Jews to talk about this. Although you have more and more challenges now in relationship between American Jews and Israel. Part of it is because of some of the decisions, political decisions, that Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu has made. And then also, if you say something against Israel, against the politics of Israel at this moment, you'll be called anti-Semite. Israel is so wrapped up in their own politics that even if there are people like me that is a little bit critical of the policies of the state of Israel, I need to be careful. Actually, the tri-faith created some individuals in our community, Jewish community, that came out against me being involved in this. What you're going to be sitting with Muslims? Why can't you sit with us, Orthodox and conservative Jews, and let's sing together Kumbaya? What are you doing? I can show you some of the emails I got from my people, including some members of Temple that were very much against this. Similar to some of the people that left your church. Some of them left because, not only because the investment was big or because we have a good building, so why can't we stay here? Some left because they couldn't comprehend a conversation with Muslims. Come on, we know that. We know our bigots and our racists. Every church, every faith community has them. You guys are so quiet now. What's going on? I'm trying to provoke you now.
You mentioned once, a long time ago, that the Jews had a hard time forgiving, or like with the Holocaust or things like that. And I'm not saying that you should forgive, that you should say it's okay, but the letting go.
I'm more worried about forgetting about this. I'm not so worried about forgiving. The only people that can forgive the atrocities are people that were killed by them. I mean, as a rabbi, I don't want to forget. I want to make sure that it's there. Because it's not only about Jews, it's about Rwanda, it's about other Armenians, it's about other places that annihilation, complete annihilation took place. I am not embracing the Holocaust as my own. I want to use the Holocaust as a teaching place, as making sure that none of us goes back to times like this. It's not my role to forgive the Nazis. They need to get forgiveness from the people they killed. Who am I? What else?
Well, I've had a lot of comments from relatives, friends about the tri-faith, anti-tri-faith.
Was it about the Jewish connection or the Muslim connection? Both.
They feel like I'm going to be converted and all these terrible things.
That's what I'm trying to do here. This is exactly what I'm trying to do every Monday morning. You see my success?
It's just, and it's really troubled me because they say, like really cruel things about
Yeah.
the initiative, and it's something that's really important to me.
And you're here. You're here on Monday. That's your answer.
Not only Jews are afraid to talk about the Palestinian issue, Christians are afraid to talk about it too, because we don't want to be accused of being anti-Semite. So nobody talks about it.
I want to apologize on the name of all the Jews in the world. They just gave me permission to make sure that you continue expressing your views. Yeah. If someone talks against Israel, there are a lot of anti-Semites still available in the world, guys. And the difficulty is, of course, how do you speak against the national movement Zionism of creating a special state for the Jews? The Jews did not have any piece of land for their own. Finally, after so many 2,000 years of living in diaspora, living in exile, there is a state. So how do you carefully criticize the policies of the state of Israel against the Palestinians without criticizing the establishment of the state of Israel, making sure that Jews have a place to be, where they are the masters of their own fate. For the first time, Jews around the world feel safe. You know that the Jews had difficulty before the state was established with plastic surgery with their nose. Jews are very aware of anti-Semitic comments about the Jews have big noses. You know, once upon a time, before the state of Israel was established, how many Jews in America had plastic surgery to make sure they correct their nose? Part of it is because of, actually they should have a small nose, maybe it's nice. But part of it was, no, they didn't only change their last name to make it more American, but they also did those plastic surgery. After the state was established, there was a minute number of Jews that continued. There was a pride in having a state. It was a haven to escape in case there is anti-Semitic agenda on the part of, for example, now, French Jews are leaving France in droves because they already see the sign on the wall. You have a lot of migration, a lot of immigrants in France. They're coming from places, from some of them from North Africa. So they are Muslims, and so some of them are chasing Jews. But the French were always known for their anti-Semitic, the famous Dreyfus trial. Do you remember that? There was a high-ranking Jewish individual by the name of Alfred Dreyfus. And he was very high on the rank of the army. And anti-Semitic people accused him for being a spy, a German spy in France, and they put him on trial. And they executed him. The person that was a journalist in that courtroom was a guy by the name of Herzl, Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl is known as a result of the trial to be the father of Zionism. He left the trial, he saw what happened and how they spoke about Jews, and he then became involved in trying to create a haven for Jews. He never spoke about a Jewish state. He spoke about a shelter for Jews. And he went through the Turks. The Turks were controlling Palestine in those days. And then the British in 1917 conquered Palestine as he continued his attempts to create a state. So you see why Israelis and why Jews are sensitive. Are you speaking about how do you separate politics from the right to have a state? By the way, there was other attempts to create a state. One was in Uganda. One was Uganda. The other one was Argentina. The other one was Birobidzhan in Russia. And there was also a land in New York, outside New York City, in the state of New York. Those were other options. He tried very hard to work on different options. But then at the end, it was clear that we don't have any relationship to Uganda. That for thousands of years we prayed for Jerusalem, turning our body toward the east to pray for Jerusalem. You can't take the Jewish history away from the Jewish need for a state. And so God, you know what happened really? When Moses was ready to take the Jews out of Egypt, You know, Moses had difficulty in speaking. God asked him, where do you want to go? Moses wanted to say Canada. But what happened was Canaan. So we got stuck there. One Jewish state with 8 million people in the midst of hundreds of, what do I mean hundreds? Millions of Arabs. Speaking about a sense of humor. The only place where there's not even a drop of oil. All around, oil, you can drink it from the faucet. What is going on in the mind of God? Why are we back there? Wouldn't Canada be good? But Moses, that's the difficulty of having a speech impediment. Yeah.
So, my husband, you know, is Jewish. He has a difficulty with the Muslim aspect of the tribe. And he goes, you know, when they stop calling for the destruction of Israel, and they'll come out and say that, then he can be fully on board with it.
Yeah. Those were the same arguments of other Jews at the temple. How can you join them if they are calling for the destruction of the state of Israel?
So how can you help us respond to that?
To who? I